Welcome to another pre-show, all you patrons. Gather round.
Gather round, gather round, gather round. But notice that they're all dressed for autumn. You know, the ladies are wearing those sort of thick wool skirts, with the plaid and all that on them, and kind of sensible shoes like they're going to go out walking. The guys are all wearing cardigans, sweaters, kind of like, Perry Como sort of sitting at home the autumn, just kind of kicking back by the fire. It's getting pretty autumnal out there.
Hopefully not too
The-
autumnal. I don't know. Whenever you say Perry Como now, I immediately think of what is it, that Mad TV skit? Where he's
Mr.
practically in bed. You're going to sleep because he's so chill. He's so relaxed.
Mr. Relaxation. Mr. Relaxation.
I just
Yeah, man, I dig Perry. He's Mr. Relaxation.
That's worth looking up, you guys out there. That skit, Mr. Relaxation, Perry Como,
Perry Como, it's SCTV actually.
SCTV. Okay.
SCTV. Mr. Relaxation. But I think autumn is a good time to start getting relaxed. I think we look, summertime people have been on vacation, they've been running around, etc. And now we've got the election and all that garbage trying to disturb us and, get us excited for what? For what? Let me ask you, which of these two actions would be the more beneficial? And I ask you as a married man, all right? Now, whether or not you've got kids is regardless, but if you did or if you didn't, it'd be the same thing. Going online, reading the latest horrors about the offerings for the election, and reflecting upon the future that may or may not happen after them, and getting all excited and upset. Or popping some corn for you and your wife, or you and the wife and the kids to sit back, chomp on. Just a nice popcorn. Wouldn't that be good?
Yes. Definitely the second one. But I tell you, when you said corn, another thing came to mind. The patrons are asking, how's the candy corn harvest this year?
Well, we'll find out we'll find out next month when I go to New England.
Hmm.
They'll let me tell you, my annual pilgrimage to bring back candy corn to Austria is it's a go.
You could make a killing just doing some good old fashioned merchant trading where you know,
Yeah, I can see the Austrian customs people opening two of my suitcases filled to the brim with bags of candy corn. What does this, Herr Coulombe? What is this? What is the meaning of this? Oh, it's just candy corn for private consumption. But why do you have two of these huge cases filled with them? Well, Halloween comes and I kind of get hungry for candy corn. I think this is very strange. We will confiscate some.
hmm.
They would. They would have no compunction in confiscating my candy corn. So I'm only going to bring about 4 or 5 bags back.
I still don't understand how the differences between countries and cultures kind of like that can still exist. Like I still don't get the donut thing. How can that hold up? Like the lack of
Well,
donuts.
I mean, they have things they call donuts, so they look like donuts until you bite into them. And then you realize that the flour is different.
So it's entirely okay. Well, that kind of makes a little sense, I guess. So they just don't have the
The
access to the right
flour,
flour.
the right flour, the water tastes different. So the milk tastes different. So you put the combination, the ingredients are different, and you can't arrive at precisely the same taste without precisely the same ingredients.
Okay, well,
So they give it the college try.
let me ask you this. you had posted a recent food photo on your Facebook. I think it was from Cafe Vest. I think I want to say that. But I'm not entirely sure. And it was just meat. It was so succulent. It looked so juicy and delicious. I think it was pork.
Oh yeah, it was pork. Yeah,
And that where was that from?
it was from the Cafe Vest, roast pork at Trubau's very own Cafe Vest.
Where can I get something like that in America?
An Austrian restaurant, maybe.
Now, see, but you see what I'm saying? Like that looks so incredible.
Yeah.
How is it limited to that area?
You know, these are questions. I mean, one of the things they make here in Austria that we don't do is called Frittatensuppe, and Frittaten are sliced up pancakes or crepes. There's no reason for us not to make them. We just don't. But here in Austria, they could make hash browns. There's no reason for them not to. They've got everything you need to make hash browns. You just don't make them.
Okay. I just don't understand. I mean, because it's like once upon a time, I remember. So my dad, he was in New York City in the born 1930, and so he eventually gets a job in California, comes out here, and he had this big money idea, which he didn't act on, unfortunately, but he always regretted it. Is go out to California and set up a pizza shop, because there was like no pizza shops over here. It was totally different. Right, and then
no, it's true. And if you go to this day, if you go to Eagle Rock, California, there is an old pizza shop with a neon sign that says Pizza Pie.
Okay.
And it's one of the it goes back to the 1940s. It's one of the very first pizza parlors in our part of the world. But of course, I mean, to be fair, your father wasn't the only one who thought about shifting the family out to California.
But you see what I'm saying? Like there was sort of this this diffusion of food preferences where it's like, oh, we don't get that over here. Somebody should set up shop and make a killing. But
yeah, but it doesn't. There's so many different kinds of food, so many ways that things could be and can be and are prepared. You never come to the end of it. I mean, it's like, who would have dreamt that chow mein sandwiches would not be popular outside Bristol County, Massachusetts? They're so succulent, so delicious, so mouth-wateringly delightful. I mean, even as I'm thinking about a chow mein sandwich, right there in a bowl in front of me, I mean, yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I know. Who would have thought? One of the greatest head scratchers in the world.
It is. It is. And the other head scratcher is why the only place I've ever encountered it outside New Bedford and Fall River is Coney Island, New York.
Ooh. Wow.
Don't ask me. I don't know how or why. Coney Island gave its name to a kind of hot dog. And there is in the Houston, Texas area, a local chain that sell quote unquote Coney Islands. But I don't know that they call a hot dog a Coney Island in Coney Island. Or that the kind of hot dog they do in Texas would be recognizable as one in Coney Island. I just don't know.
All right. Let's do some questions.
Questions. Are you sure you want to, with the sound of the falling leaves and Perry Como playing on the radio, and the fireplace. And, it's just warm and comfy inside, and outside it's cold, and I mean, it's and you're just intensely comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Do you ever do Yeah, no,
Oh, so I'm
there you
sorry.
go. Do you ever do sort of relaxing sort of background noise videos, I guess you could say, where it's like, oh, the rain falling, or the crickets chirping, or the river water gurgling? Have you ever seen that, or do you ever do that?
I've seen it. I don't do it here. When I was living in LA, when it was very hot and I had to work and I'd be riding away, I'd turn the air conditioning in my room on to full blast, and I would play the sound, two sounds put together from separate channels. One would be the crackling fire,
Mm.
and the other would be the pouring rain with thunder and lightning.
I thought you showed me that. You might have given me something to that extent, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I did. And even though it was, it'd be 100 degrees outside, I'd be inside, sweater on, gulping my coffee, riding away.
I
And
do. Yeah, go on.
well, I was going to say, and I've discovered an interesting channel on YouTube called Nemo's Dreamscapes, which pairs old music with sounds like that.
Mm.
Like, let me see. And they'll have long things. Believe it or not, I've actually become a patron.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I
saying a
know.
lot, Charles. That's pretty cool.
I don't part with do re mi
No,
easily
you.
because I don't got much.
Yeah, so I'm kind of blown away right now. I have to process this. Nemo's
Well,
Dreamscapes?
yep. So they've got like 1948 sitting on a porch on an autumn morning, fall oldies playing in another room, 11 hours. The oldies playing in a coffee shop and it's raining.
I see these,
Uh,
yeah.
you fell asleep in Tommy Shelby's car on a rainy night, sitting in 1940s, sitting in a bed reading while there's a party going on in the next room. And so it goes.
Wow, so you got, but in very Charles Coulombe like fashion. That is so
Yeah.
cool. That's wow. All right, that's so cool.
So
Yeah,
well, you see the material.
yeah,
When you realize you've got 4 or 5 hours of work ahead of you,
yeah.
you could easily bliss out with this stuff. And I mean, I like the night, I like the rain, I like old music.
All right, that's awesome, Charles. Thank you for sharing that. All right.
One thing better than that is actually being physically in bed. It's the only thing better. I went out to Maria Cell, the great shrine today, with a crew from the ITI, and I had 2 long naps on the bus, which the kids A didn't waken me, which I appreciated, but B told me all about afterwards, which I didn't appreciate so much. They said, "Wow, it's amazing how you can sleep like that." And I
Yeah,
said, "Just wait, kids. Just wait. The day
yeah.
will come." And I have to admit, I used to wonder how my elders could just fall asleep at the drop of a hat. They just, well, I know now. I found out. I found out for myself that everything that everyone said was right. Won't come back from Dead Man's Curve. Dead Man's Curve. La 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 la. No.
All right, let's go.
All right.
So Vonday Radio, he actually has a bunch of questions for me. I'm very flattered, Vonday.
Okay. Well, I'll just sit this one out and see you in the hot seat.
Well, he asked me a bunch of softball questions, of course. Dear Vinnie, what is your favorite Tumblr House politics book and why? That is a great question, and I would say my favorite politics book is The End of Democracy by Christophe Buffin de Chazal. And so that book, I honestly don't know how it fell into our lap. It's so good. I felt like I'm just kind of shocked.
I know how you got it.
Well, I mean, back in the day, it was edgier. Like, so we published that, like, what is it, 2015 or 2016, and that was sort of ahead of the curve, I guess you could say. And now it's more in vogue, the opinions it espouses, as we've gone further along on our train wreck.
Well, that's it. I mean, Christophe predicted the way the train would wreck itself.
Yeah. But, it's not just the content in terms of what he's saying. It's the style and the way he says it. In trying to market these books, or the book, it was so easy to extract quotes from it to put on the web. It was like I ended up highlighting like every single page because Christophe speaks. Christophe speaks in such a potent, simple fashion, and he takes these ideas and he just weaponizes them. I'm going to read you guys a bunch of quotes to give you guys an idea. Just very simple excerpts. Nothing is more dangerous to democracy than the people. That is why democracy will always claim to serve the people while only permitting a small number to rule in their stead. What democracy demands from the people is legitimacy. It does not care about their opinion. The political parties.
It's true, and of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, it's just the one question one has is when democracy serves the people, to whom does it serve them?
Oh, interesting.
Well, who are they serving the people to? By whom shall the people be consumed?
Gosh, that's like, oh
we
man.
We serve the people on a plate. With apples in their mouths.
Oh man. All right. The political parties put forward those of their members who show themselves to be the best manipulators. But among these, only those who are the most open to being manipulated themselves accede to power. The ideal politician is pliable, convincing, and a liar by instinct. He is not attached to any platform, and he has no ideological objective. The single thing to which he is truly committed is power. He wants its prestige and advantages, and seeks above all to be personally enriched by it. Any politician who presents this aspect is recognized as fit for power in a democracy. Let's see. When a party obtains an absolute majority, it can be tempted to put an end to the democratic system. Democracy is never protected from self-destruction. When the parties are too weak, it is the rule of the minority. When they are too powerful, they compromise the system. In both cases, democracy shows itself to be impossible. This is a pretty obvious one. I mean, we kind of say this a lot. I feel like most of the audience knows this one, but perhaps it's advanced for mainstream. The reality is that democracy was invented for the purpose of bringing an oligarchy into power and keeping it there.
Yeah.
Public sentiment has been conditioned so much against any other form of government, and it has become so convinced that democracy, in spite of its weaknesses, is the system of humanity par excellence, that it cannot admit that this sure system could also be, like so many others, called into question. Right? It's so interesting, like to realize that you can't question democracy. You cannot.
No,
Um,
you can't. It's and again, that's even, by the way, without defining it,
hmm.
because at the end of the day, you say, well, democracy is ruled by the majority of the people. Well, what does that mean? 50 plus one?
Hmm. This is my favorite quote in the entire book because this is the question for everybody. This is the gotcha question. Progress can only exist when we are convinced we can do better and that things can be perfected. How is it
Yes.
then that we became convinced we could do no better than democracy?
Well, because those in charge told us that, and we accepted it.
I
You
know,
know,
but people
I
won't
mean,
say that though. You're gonna get a lot of
no, they
fidgeting. You're
won't.
gonna get a lot of weird stuff. You're gonna get an uncomfortable silence, but
Well,
ultimately dismissed.
I think in a very real sense, Christoph's work was proved to be true by the COVID experience.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that is where the true face. You know, my joke at the time, and I've said it many, many times then and since, when they had us put our masks on, they took theirs off,
Hmm.
and I believe that's true.
Yes.
Uh, you know, the amount of abuse that the populations of the various countries of the world went through at the hands of their masters, uh, in the name of what? Health, safety, and again, you know, there are other questions that the whole idea of democracy brings up. One is that no one questions it, the place of judicial dictatorship in a democracy. So, was the case in the United States, at a time when the vast majority of Americans believed that abortion was murder, by what right dared the Supreme Court of the United States to impose abortion upon its subjects? That wasn't democratic, now was it? So you can either say that the judiciary are extra democratic outside democracy, but in that case, why? By what authority? And of course, you know, as he says, he points out all they want out of the electorate is legitimacy. But what is legitimacy worth if it actually works against the interests of those who grant it? I'll put this another way: the church crowns the king, but the king acts against the church. Think of Henry VIII. Does he or does he not lose legitimacy by that very action? And you don't have to be so monarchical. If a president violates the Constitution, which presumably is what gives him authority, does he retain it? These are difficult questions. Not difficult in theory, but difficult in living with. That's why Stauffenberg and the gang had such a hard time ethically getting rid of Hitler.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So, next question. He's got another question for me. He says, "Dear Vinny, what is your favorite Tumblr House history book, and why?" That's an easy one. I that's another really good question because it sort of made me explore my mind, and so obviously the book is going to be Puritan's Empire. By an obscure Catholic author.
Oh, shucks.
And so obviously it's littered with a lot of awesome factoids, right? It's American history from a Catholic perspective, which means it's a version of history you haven't heard.
That sounds
That's
like
what that
something
means.
somebody wrote pushing the book.
Yes, yes. But in reflecting on why that book was especially important for me, and I think it's important for a lot of people, it's actually not simply about learning the history about it, and it's not actually even about the content of the book. That's actually important, and it just hit me today with your question: what makes that book so important? That book is the beginning of a broader intellectual journey because it shows so vividly that the education you received is garbage. And so it causes you to explore more areas because you read this and you kind of don't stop. You kind of don't say, "Oh, okay, well that's it. This is all the untold, you know, truths that I haven't heard." You don't assume it stopped. It ends there. And so that leads you to all these different pathways. And I don't think I'm unique in that sense. I think a lot of people have a similar and perhaps it might not happen with Puritan's Empire, right? Like the mainstream book is the red pill, right? Like you're out of the matrix, right? We'll go into that metaphor. That is a red pill book that gets you out of the matrix and into the gritty, harsh reality of things that have been hidden from you. Um, so yeah, it's Puritan's Empire. Do you have anything to say about this book, Charles?
Oh shucks. Uh, well, yeah. I mean, I appreciate all of that. Obviously, you know, I'm at an age now where I look back at all that I've written, and I've written a lot. You know, over 40 years. Um, and what you know, you ask yourself, what is it you were really trying to accomplish, and did you have any success? Well, did you have any success is a question that's really difficult to answer. But what you tried to accomplish, uh, that it was really to get people to see things differently, to see things in the light of what I believe to be reality, the Catholic truth. Uh, it, you know, and it was a bit. I can't say it was difficult in one sense, but it was a fun book to write because it combined two things I love: the Catholic faith and this crazy, wild place we call the United States, uh, which I love. You know, I absolutely love. And of course, for years I've had to deal with people yapping at me that because I don't think our institutions were designed by God Himself, because I don't think the Holy Ghost brought the Constitution to Philadelphia. I've had to deal with people yapping at me that I hate my country. Well, the truth of it is, I love my country. I love her more than I can say. Uh, I always have. You know, I've seen every state. I love all 50 of our United States. I think they are taken together one of the best countries in the world, and certainly as my native country, it's my favorite. But um, that has nothing to do with its institutions. It has everything to do with its simple reality. Or to put this another way, your parents are by definition flawed human beings. Uh, their flaws you may not like, but you tolerate them to some degree because they're your parents' flaws. You know, maybe you can't stand your mother constantly going on and on about macrame, and how it wasn't just for the 70s. It's something we should all love today. Well, okay, Ma. Okay. But I guarantee you, when your mother's gone, you'll have at least one piece of macrame in the house to honor to honor her memory. Um, I feel that way about the United States. It doesn't have to be the last best hope of mankind, the shining city on the hill. Doesn't have to be any of that stuff.
Well,
All it has to be is the country I was born in.
that touches on something that's really important. I've been thinking about a lot lately, particularly with work relationships and just relationships in general, which is you can quite definitively gauge how much you love a thing or a person, particularly a person, by how much you're willing to love that person regardless of the flaws. Like, for example, like if you don't like a person, then a small flaw will drive you up the wall. Like you'll demonize this person and all this and that and get obsessive about it. But that's because you don't like the person. That's because you don't have any love in your heart for this person. But then someone you like a lot, someone you love, and you take the same flaw, and it's like nothing. It's like, and so I feel like what you just did with the country truly does show a love. It's like, yeah, it has flaws, but there's more to this thing than those flaws,
Yeah. It's it's a little bit like Nemo's Dreamscapes, in the sense that the music he plays, it's all American stuff for the most part. There'll be a few other things, but mostly it's the Great American Songbook, which I happen to love. I love the golden age of Broadway, the golden age of Hollywood, the golden age of American illustration, the golden age of radio, the golden age of comic books, the golden age of television. I love all that. And, we, in the scientific sphere, of course, we came up with the polio vaccine and a ton of other wonderful things. But it's just particularly in terms of what we've turned out to make life more pleasant and enjoyable, the cocktail, American. That's why in all the major cities in Europe, you'll have American bars that specialized in cocktails. Today, most major hotels and all that in European cities will have cocktails. But there was a time, if you wanted a decent cocktail, you had to go to a quote-unquote American bar.
Yeah.
And then they might or might not know what they were doing. I remember years ago when I was a member of the Challenger Club in London, now alas gone. I was amazed because I asked the bartender for a Bloody Mary, and in those days, getting a Bloody Mary in London, a good one, was not easy. They thought it was just tomato juice and vodka. Well, he made one of the best I've ever had. And I said, how do you do that? He said, well, sir, I'll tell you. I once worked in New York for 2 months at a bar, and I learned how to make them properly. I said, well, that's great.
Yeah, no, again, you're reminding me of another aspect of love, which is, it's so funny, but I don't know if it's the Bible and St. Francis, or St. Francis or both, but you become what you love. It shapes you. It influences you. And I think everyone can see that in your personality, those facets of America that you love have shaped you in such a particular way.
Well, that's probably true. I have been told by a number of people over here that I'm the most American man they know.
So.
And But of course, that would also explain dark academia.
How is that? I mean,
Well,
is dark
tends to
academia
shape what.
American?
No, well, yes, I guess it can be. The Ivy League and the top boarding schools. But you know what I saw in Romans when I was back in California?
Um, what?
A section called Dark Academia.
That seems like an unusual category. What was that about?
Well,
I
that's a good
thought it was an
question.
aesthetic.
It is. It is an aesthetic, which makes me wonder. Let me just
Was
see if
it
they'll tell us. Romans bookstore.
like classic literature or something?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. Let me see. All right, Dark. Yeah, Romans bookstore. Uh, yeah, they have a section called Dark Academia. Uh, they're pulling it up on Instagram as we speak. Yeah, there it is. There's that section, Dark Academia. And because this is from their Instagram, okay? So I'm going to send you, just so you can see that I'm not hallucinating. I'm going to send you the link, and you can see for yourself. They have a whole section. Did you see that?
What are these books? These look like normal books. Dark Academia. I am not familiar. Susanna Clark, Catherine House, Alex. I don't know these people.
I don't either, but they consider them all to be dark academia. One of these things is called The Ghosts of Harvard, a novel by Francesca Sorrentolina. There's a name for you. The Maidens by Michael Nines, Enclaves, Deadly Something or Other. Olivia Blake, The Atlas Paradox. R.E. Kwang, Babel. Catherine House, a novel by Elizabeth Thomas. Yeah, this all sounds like mysteries, whatever, or horror set against an academic backdrop. So I guess that's why they call it dark academia.
Hmm.
So dark academia has reached out even to the sunny town of Pasadena, California. It stuck a dark little pinky into the heart of sunny Pasadena, California.
All right. All right.
A
Another question.
loathsome pinky.
Loathsome. All right.
Loathsome, disgusting pinky.
Another question from
You have
Von.
another question.
Yes, yes. He says, "Dear Vinny, who's your favorite royal saint?" I have kind of an unusual one. You know, what would you guess my favorite royal saint is, Charles?
Your favorite royal saint would probably be.
That'd be impressive if you get it, but it's within reach, I feel like.
Well, I mean, I would love to say Blessed Emperor Carl, but that won't be it.
No.
Your favorite royal saint?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's some Italian, of course.
Actually not.
All right.
Actually not.
No.
Actually not. It
All right.
it,
Who?
it it would be Stephen of Hungary.
Oh, okay. Saint Stephen of Hungary. All right, I get that. Well, he's your
Yeah.
brother's patron.
Yeah, I definitely. But you know, there's always there's an aura around Stephen of Hungary. I feel like, at least in the things I've read, where people, they always look back on his reign, longingly, and it's. I think one of the biggest positives of it was a time of peace. Is that fair? Yeah, I mean, it was a time of peace and prosperity. But what more could you ask for?
Well, not much. And I mean, what's interesting about a lot of these saints, not just Stephen, but the missionary kings in Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Bohemia, who sort of evangelized their people all at once. You had a huge beneficial change almost overnight. Remember, the Magyars had been at war with all of their neighbors, and they were very bloodthirsty. And then all of a sudden, St. Stephen says, "All right, we're Catholic now." And there was an explosion in art, literature, learning, etc., etc. And too, it's like with Camelot. I don't mean JFK, I mean King Arthur. Or like with Charlemagne's Carolingian Renaissance. There are these periods where the clouds of history open up a little bit. And for a bright, shining moment, things are halfway the way they're supposed to be. And then the clouds cover them up again, and we're
that's exactly the feeling. That's it right there. Like he was reign over that moment, that type of moment.
Yeah. That beautiful period where for just a brief shining moment. And then of course Gilgalad was an elven king. Of him the harpers sadly sing. The last whose realm was fair and free between the mountains and the sea. His lance was long, his sword was keen, his shining helm from far was seen. And all the stars of heaven's field were mirrored on his silver shield. But where he dwelleth, none can say, for long ago he rode away, and into darkness fell his star, in Mordor, where the shadows are. Well, the difference, of course, is we know where St. Stephen is, and it's not Mordor.
Yeah.
But his people were left in the same. It's funny. These sorts of figures shoot across our history like comets, and they light up the night sky, and for a brief period, people are happier than they are normally. And then the comet passes, and we're back to the same miasmal mist. But we hope, we pray for the next comet to enlighten our darkened world.
All right. Gosh, that's so beautiful. Makes me almost want to end on the show, but we do have one more question from John.
Right.
Unfortunately, I guess that moment was a comment, and we're gonna go back down.
Go by, and now you see what it's like. Well, I'll prolong the moment slightly. No, I'm reminded of a poem I wrote back in 1985 when Halley's Comet came. Now, my grandfather remembered Halley's Comet when it came in 1910, 1911. And it was an amazing experience in those days. People would go out on the rooftops to watch it, and it was so bright. And they had comet cocktails, and things like that. And interestingly, Mark Twain was born the prior year, 1840, whatever it was, that Halley's Comet had hit. And he always said, "I came in with a comet, and I'll go out with it." And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He did that. So the poem is slightly fictionalized because my grandfather never worked in a government department in the way that I've described. But here's the point. See what you think of it. And the other thing is that the 85 appearance was very, very dim. It was nothing like what he described. The old man's eyes of piercing blue twinkled as he stared us you. Never have you seen such as then when the comet came in 1910. Its tail lit up the sky at night. It was hard to believe it could be so bright. We spoke of it often in the time before our world ended in the First Great War. Uh, such wondrous times then we had, such marvelous things to make us glad. A waltz, white-tied, after dark. Once I saw the Emperor in the park. All things progression was our dream, which ended rudely in 14. For years I've worked in the same department, and as reward, I've this apartment. This time the comet won't be so bright. It cannot pierce our modern night.
Mm. That is one poem of many Charles's poems, which can be found in the White Cockade.
Oh, we are shameless.
We are no, we don't talk about this enough, and so we're kind of on a roll today. I mean, we're kind of talking about favorites. We're kind of just like putting things out there. White Cockade. We have a predominantly young male audience, and this was I remember in your words, you say for this book, poetry is a young man's game.
It really is.
These are the feelings of a young Charles Coulombe. These idyllic feelings, which I'm sure are going to resonate with all of you, or most of you listening right now. So very small, about 100 pages or so worth of poems. Check it out on Tumbler House website. In my brother very astutely said, as one last selling point, he said, it's important that Catholics, that you don't just simply think like a Catholic. It's important that you feel like a Catholic. And I feel like that the poetry and the feelings that you stir up with your poems are an important component that not a lot of people have.
Well, I mean, they were. I haven't written a great deal of poetry in recent years, but they certainly they expressed where I was when I was young, and B, I really haven't gone that far. Another one of them was called A Note of Dissent, and it went. I must admit that I often dream of the glimmering light of the old regime. In my secret garden grows the lily and the fair white rose. Over all the mournful cry of the double eagle fills the sky. In this day of grenade and tank, when real power lies in the bank, such musing such yearning for a muse of fire runs counter to approved desire. But still I hope a day will come before my tale of years is done, when exile to the realm of dream is the soulless face of the new regime. And I can tell you, I meant every word of it when I wrote it, and I mean it more now, more than I could ever have imagined.
Last question of the episode. From John, is wokeism ingrained in the Americanist ideology?
Wow. Is wokeism ingrained in the Americanist ideology? I happen to think that that is a wonderful question, because I have long believed that American exceptionalism had carried in it the seeds of wokery. Now, that's going to sound a little weird, because wokery is, after all, the negation of it. Instead of the shining city on the hill, the last best hope of mankind, you have the most evil country that ever was, born in genocide and built on slavery. But, ha 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 ha, I think it's a little bit like the relationship between Calvinism and Unitarianism, where you have Calvinism, which is, predestination and all that. Those are the places that Unitarianism arises, where God is all loving, and if there is a God, he's all for us, and if there isn't, it doesn't matter. Everything is wonderful in its own way, in the immortal words of Ray Stevens. Yes, I remember the correction. It wasn't Cat Stevens, it was Ray Stevens. Everything is beautiful in its own way. Very Unitarian. But, and there is a but here, uh, Unitarianism in that sense is the flip side of Calvinism. So similarly, wokery is the flip side of American exceptionalism. You see, neither can accept that the United States are just a country like any other. No, 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 no. But if they aren't the best, they must be the worst. And, I've had people say to me, the United States are an idea, not a country. And the implication is that they're only good or valid to the degree that the idea is good or valid. But what if it isn't? What if history shows that we have not, in fact, always been this incredible paragon of wonderfulness? Oh, then we must be the opposite. Then we're disgusting and horrible and have no reason to exist. Both are wrong. And, well, in a lot of ways, my history book that you pointed out was my way to try to show that both were wrong.
Is it part of sort of an identity crisis where it's like we're trying to find the identity of America? Because I'm starting to think back to, I don't know if it was from my brother that said this to me or you, but the identity of republics always have to be artificial. The purpose of republics always have to be this artificial thing compared to a monarchy.
Yes.
And so obviously that's part of our struggle. So,
well, monarchies are by definition, they're organic growths, whereas republics are the creation of a group that get together and decide they're going to overthrow the old order and create a new one. Now, in the case of the Americas, not just ourselves, but everybody from Mexico to Argentina, this was compounded by the fact that we didn't really have separate identities. We had regional identities, but that's not the same thing. And so the other thing that made things very difficult was that our Latin American brethren decided to adopt our system, lock, stock, and barrel, and to cultures that it simply made no sense in. So, but I before we adjourn and bring the patrons to our main show, there is, thinking of poetry, one other item that I think would be very fitting for right now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's a poem by Liborio Romano called All Souls, and it's very particular to this time of year. Here it is, All Souls. When gourds are mellow yellow on the vine, when mums and asters wither in the weeds, when death rides heedless in the dew frost night, Madonna, shield me as I say my beads. When serpents slither through the slushy meads, when sin pervades the caverns void of light, when death directs her melancholy notes, Oh, blessed lady, mantle me from fright. When nature waits the nesting robe of white, when Satan stokes the furnace fiery red, when ghosts like shadows shroud the moon in gray, oh, holy lady, mantle me from dread. When autumn fields with films of frost lie dead, when mums and asters wither in the weeds, when death rides heedless in the dew frost night, Madonna, shield me as I say my beads.
Mm,
Give you a little taste of October?
little bit.
Send a shiver up your spine?
Yep. We're entering October country.
We sure are. By the prickling in my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
All right, that's it. That's gonna do it for the pre-show, everyone. I hope you all have enjoyed it, but stay tuned. Full episode coming right at you.
It's for you, by you, and of you? That doesn't work.
That doesn't work, but it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. See you then.
All right. See you in a minute. Ciao, ciao.